And shalom, shalom, shalom. This is Deacon Ernest James coming out of Durham, North Carolina, King James Bible University. And today's teaching that I will be bringing forth is entitled, The Wrath of God Cometh Upon the Children of Disobedience. So today, my brothers and sisters, we're going to be looking at a very serious teaching because we have to understand that from the beginning, JEHOVAH, who is our guide, made a covenant with us. This agreement, this covenant that he made with our forefathers that they failed to keep and uphold to. Now we, as a people today, are in a covenant agreement with our God. And we are doing the same as they did because we have become covenant breakers with our God. And this is why we have the problem. Because we rather follow the things of the world than being followers of God, being followers of righteousness. Because we rather follow behind darkness rather than light. So in this teaching, we will see how this rebellion against God's law always breeds sin and wickedness in us, and why the wrath of God is coming. Because we must remember that rebellion against Yahawah's will always bring consequences of divine judgment upon evildoers. This is what's going to happen and bring punishment upon us. And we can see how this will manifest in various ways. So this is something that will never change because God doesn't change. So he will never allow those of us who want to continue in our sins to go unchecked and unpunished. Even those that believe that we are getting away with our actions that do contrary to God, in the end, the result will still always be the same. Because no flesh will go unpunished. Because we need to understand that every man, every male or female, will be recompensed for his deeds, whether good or bad. So we need to make sure that we take heed to the warnings and the instructions that are given unto us by the word of God. Because our very lives depend on it. So with that, we're going to go ahead and hop into this teaching. So we're going to start right here in 2nd Esdras. We're going to go to 2nd Esdras, chapter 14. And we're going to hit verse 28. We're going to take it from verse 28 down to verse 33. And it says, 2nd Esdras chapter 14, starting at verse 28. And it says, Hear these words, O Israel. Our fathers at the beginning were strangers in Egypt, so in the house of bondage, from whence they were delivered, redeemed. Verse 30. And receive the law of life, which they kept not, which ye also have transgressed after them. So we even see right here that JEHOVAH redeemed us from bondage. And we're going to see right here in the law where JEHOVAH made this covenant agreement with us. And even though we made that agreement, we still lied unto him even then, because we didn't uphold to the end of our agreement. So we even going to see right here where we made the agreement with JEHOVAH. And we see this when we go to Exodus chapter 19, and we're going to hit verse 4 down to verse 8. And then we'll come back to 2nd Esdras. But we're going to go right here in Exodus chapter 19, starting at verse 4. And he tells us, he says, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bear you on eagle's wings, so on these possessors' strength, and brought you unto myself. Verse 5. Now therefore, so for that reason, providing you will obey my voice in deed and works, and keep my covenant, so keep my agreement, my law, my promise, then ye should be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Verse 6. And ye should be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which the Spirit of God commanded him. Verse 8. And all the people answered together and said, all that the Spirit of God hath spoken, we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Spirit of God. So we see that this was the law, this agreement, this covenant, this binding agreement that was given unto us by JEHOVAH, this covenant promise, this binding agreement that was made between us and our God. So this covenant was an oath. It's a vow, just as a marriage vow between a man and his wife. This is the vow that we made with our God, him being our husband. But did we keep this? No, because we became covenant breakers, adulterers, being unfaithful to the covenant. As we seen, we received this promise unto us, and he gave us his law, but we didn't hearken unto it. So now we'll go back over here to 2nd Esdras, chapter 14, starting at verse 31. He tells us, he says, then was the land, so the people, even the land of Zion, meaning Jehovah's dwelling place, parted among you by lot. But your fathers and ye yourselves have done unrighteousness, and have not kept the ways which the highest commanded you. Verse 32. And for as much as he is a righteous judge, a righteous teacher, he took from you in time the thing that he had given you. Verse 33. And now are you here, and your brethren among you. So this is the position that we are right now in to this day. We didn't keep the commandments of our God. However, we transgressed against them and went backwards. And now we here. We right here scattered to the four corners of the earth. So it don't matter what state, what city, or what country that we're in. We're all in the land of our captivity. We all in the same position, no matter where we're located. But we all here learning of what we've done against our God. So that's why we all here today, to learn what it is that we've done and what's required of us. Because it doesn't matter where we are scattered in the world. We as a whole are all in the same position. And we can even see what we talking about when we go over here to we're gonna go to Baruch chapter 3, and we're gonna hit verse 8 down to verse 13. Tell us right here in Baruch chapter 3, starting at verse 8. He tells us, he says, behold, remember, we are yet this day. So that means today, to this present day, in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payments, according to all the iniquities of our fathers, which departed from the Lord our God. Verse 9. Hear, Israel, the commandments of life. Give ear to understand wisdom. Verse 10. How happeneth it, Israel, that thou art in your perfection and beauty in thine enemy's land, that thou art waxen old in a strange country, that thou art defiled with the dead, because we separated from God. Verse 11, that thou art counted with them that go down into the grave. Thou hast forsaken the fountain of wisdom. So we rejected the fountain of wisdom. For if thou hadst walked, so if thou hadst lived in the way of God, thou shouldst have dwelled in peace forever. So he's making it very clear to us that we had a choice to make on what we did, because we have to remember what was taken away from us because of our disobedience. We have to remember what we fell from, this spiritual state that we were in. So we have to understand from the beginning, we were created as spiritual beings. Because God created spirits to be immortal. So we were separated from those things of the flesh, but we decided that we wanted to go our own way instead of living in the way of God. So, and because of that, we had to pay the price for it. Because he tells us right here in Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, we can even see right here in Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 23 and verse 24. He tells us right here, starting at verse 23, he says, for God created man to be immortal, so to be incorruptible, not subject to death, and made him to be an image, so a likeness of his own eternity. So we were made in his image, meaning we should actually reflect the character of God, being in alignment with his ways, but we don't, because we chose to align ourselves with our own ways, with the things that we wanted to do. He tells us in verse 24, nevertheless, through envy of the devil came death into the world, and they that do hold of his side do find it. So we see this is why we have this problem, because we wanted to exalt our own selves. The Spirit of God made us to be incorruptible and to be a likeness of his own eternity, being a representation of him, reflecting his character and being in alignment with his ways. This is what we're supposed to have been doing. We're supposed to have been following the way of righteousness, which was life, which we can even see right here when we go to Proverbs. We're going to hit Proverbs chapter 12. Let's hit Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 28. He tells us right here, Proverbs chapter 12, verse 28. This is the path we've supposed to have been living. In the way of righteousness is life. That's a full thought. And in the pathway thereof, there is no death. So we see this. So as long as we held to the instructions and the desires of God uprightly, then we wouldn't have had any issues. However, because of our disobedience, we fell from that. Now we in this filthy flesh, and now we subject to death. This is the recompense for sin. And he even tell us this when we go to Romans. We hit Romans chapter 6. We're going to hit Romans chapter 6 and verse 23. We only need that first part before the semicolon. That's all we need right here. In Romans chapter 6, verse 23a, where it says, for the wages of sin is death. That's a full thought. So we see this right here. This was the recompense of it. The payment for living contrary to Jehovah. So we see that because we have to remember, we were warned from the beginning what not to do and the instructions that we were to hold to. He told us this. When we go over here, we're going to go over here to 2nd Esdras, chapter 7. And he tells us this in verse 21. In 2nd Esdras, chapter 7, and verse 21, he tells us, for God hath given straight commandment. So he gave us strict instructions to such as came, what they should do to live, even as they came, and what they should observe to avoid punishment. So this is what he told us. This is what he told us to do. He gave us these strict commandments, these strict instructions for us to follow. And we can even see an example of this. When we go over here to Genesis, we're going to see this. So we're going to hit Genesis chapter 2. And we're going to start at Genesis chapter 2. We're going to start at verse 7. We're going to take it down to verse 9. And then we're going to jump down. So Genesis chapter 2, starting at verse 7. And it says, "And the Spirit of God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul." Verse 8. "And the Spirit of God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Spirit of God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, so to the understanding, and good for food." So it was good for doctrine. "The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." So now we're going to jump down to verse 15. We're going to take it from verse 15 to verse 17. He tells us right here, verse 15. "And the Spirit of God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Spirit of God commanded the man." So he instructed the man. This is what we're talking about. So this is when he gave us these instructions, saying, "Of every tree," so of every elder, of every teacher of the garden, "thou mayest freely eat," so thou mayest freely learn. "However, of the elder of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not learn of it. For in the day thou learnest thereof, thou shalt surely die." So this is where we can see, this is where we receive those instructions from Jehovah to follow these strict commandments. This is what we had to follow, providing that we wanted to continue in this way, in this righteous path. However, if we decided to go against those instructions, we see what it would lead to, which is death and eternal separation from God. This is the choice that he put before us, because we have to understand that Jehovah is always going to give us a choice. He's not going to force us to serve him. He gave us liberty so we can serve him freely, not for us to be in bondage. That's why he took us out of bondage, so we could freely make our choice on what we're going to serve. That's why he told us that we could. Well, he told us right here in verse 16, "Of every tree," so of every elder or teacher of the garden, thou mayest freely eat. Thou mayest freely learn. So to learn of these elders, these teachers freely. This is what he told us to do. And we can even see more when we go to Sirach on that point that he put in this choice before us. He's not forcing us to do anything, but we always have a choice on what side we're going to hold to. He tells us right here in Sirach, or Ecclesiastes chapter 15 and verse 17. He tells us right here. In Sirach chapter 15 and we're going to start right here in verse 17. He tells us, he says, "Before man," so in the presence of man, in the presence of male and female, is life and death. "And whether him liketh shall be given him." Now we'll go over here to Joshua. We're going to go to Joshua chapter 24 and verse 15. He tells right here. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Spirit of God, choose you this day whom you will serve. And that's just the part up to that semicolon. What we need right there. What he said. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Spirit of God, choose you this day whom ye will serve. So he making it clear to us. This is the choice that he's given us. So I just went to those two places just to show how that choice is always before us. So we can't say that we were forced to do anything. We willingly made the choices that we made. Just as today, we're going to make that choice on who we're going to serve based on what we want to do. So now we're going to go over here to 2nd Esdras. We're going to go back to 2nd Esdras. And now we're going to hit chapter 3. 2nd Esdras, chapter 3. Now we're going to hit verse 5. We're going to hit 2nd Esdras, chapter 3. We're going to hit verse 5 down to verse 7. Because he's telling us. 2nd Esdras, chapter 3, starting at verse 5. And it says, and gave us a body unto Adam without soul, which was the workmanship of thine powers. And it is breathed unto him the breath of life, and he was made living before thee. This is exactly what we seen in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. Verse 6, and thou leadest him into paradise, which thy right hand had planted before ever the earth came forward. Verse 7, and unto him thou gavest commandment to love thy way, so to promise thy way, which he transgressed, and immediately thou appointest death in him and in his generations, of whom came nations, tribes, people, and kindreds out of number. So this is what happened. The Spirit of God gave us his knowledge, gave us his wisdom, his understanding, and led us into paradise, Eden. This is where he led us. He gave us his instructions to promise his way. But no matter what, we still transgressed against that. This is what we did. We can even see, we're going to see exactly where this happened when we go to Genesis chapter 3. And Genesis chapter 3, and we're going to hit, let's see. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 3, and we're just going to hit verse 6. So we can see exactly what we decided to hold on to and what we decided to choose. So when we go to Genesis chapter 3 and verse 6, he tells us right here, and it says, and when the woman, so when our spirit saw that this tree, this elder, this teacher was good for food, was good for doctrine, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, pleasant to the understandings, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, of those works, and did learn, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did learn. So, as we mentioned before, this choice was before us. See, we willingly made this choice. This is something that we decided to hold to. Nobody didn't force us to do this. We willingly decided to hold on to these things and make this choice to learn of these works that we shouldn't have. And we decided to rebel against the instructions of God. And the thing is, what comes immediately because of that is the consequences for it. When we jump down the verse 17, we're going to see what happened. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 17, down to verse 19. He tells us right here, starting at verse 17, he says, and unto Adam, he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife. So we listening to our own spirit. We following our own spirit. And thou hast learned of the tree, which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not learn of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow thou shalt learn of it all the days of thy life. Verse 18. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt learn the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face thou shalt eat bread. So we're going to learn knowledge. We're going to learn doctrine till thou return unto the ground. For out of it was thou taken, for dust thou art. So dust in your perfection and beauty, and unto dust shalt thou return. So this was the outcome for our rebellion against God. That's why we stated that rebellion against Jehovah's commands will always result in judgment against evildoers. This was the result of disobeying the doctrines and teachings that were given unto us. Because we have to remember that Yahawah, he led us into this paradise. Yahawah put us in a position to be separated unto him, to be his delight, living in peace and prosperity in his wisdom and protection. But we decided to go contrary to that. Now we in this flesh, we covered in it. We subject to death. We subject to decay and ruin. And now we have to learn the right way, providing we want to receive life. Because if not, if we don't learn the right way, then the only thing left for us is destruction. Because this is the consequence and the recompense for our disobedience. As he said, in the sweat of thy face thou shalt thou eat bread. So we have to labor. We have to put in this work to learn knowledge until we dead, until this flesh aspires. This is why we always going to be forever learning, because we have to learn what it is that we've done against our God. It's so many things that we need to learn and get understanding of, and how far we strayed away from his laws, and what we have to do to correct our wrongdoings, because we have to understand that this is 100% on us. And we have to face the facts that we are the ones that mess this up for ourselves because of our prideful ways. That's what we have to understand, because there's a lot of us right now, meaning black folks. See, I'm not going to say Hebrews, because true Hebrews are those of us who passed over, because that's what a Hebrew is. Those who passed over from living according to the flesh. And matter of fact, I'll even go to the spiritual dictionary real quick so we can even see that. Just so nobody says, well, it's just you said that. No, because we can even see. We see right here where it says Hebrews, he who passed over. So that's what that means. But you got a lot of people that say, oh, well, we Hebrews. Okay, how are you a Hebrew, but you still living according to the flesh? Spiritually, we need to understand what Hebrew mean. We like to go by these things, but we're not understanding that a Hebrew is one who passed over from living according to the flesh. But if we sitting here living according to the flesh and we still doing the works of the flesh, then we not true Hebrews. We just black. Meaning what? we gonna see it. This is why we saying this. What? Darkness. Dark, despair, ignorance. Meaning we ain't got no knowledge. We living in ignorance and despair. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying right now. Because a lot of us, we sitting here in the position that we in, and we looking at all the things that we got going on in this world, and we always hollering. Oh, we want justice. We always talking about we want reparations. We love to sit there to go out and march and have all these rallies and do all these silly things, talking about, oh, we pro-black this, we pro this, we pro that. We doing all this stuff, but not looking at the fact that we are the ones that put ourselves in the position that we are in right now, because we did it to ourselves. But we sitting here trying to look at everybody else and try to place blame on somebody else for something that we brought upon ourselves. See, this is our issue. Instead of looking at our wrongdoings, we want to blame the white man and whoever else. We want to blame when we the ones that's being disobedient against our God. And then we'll sit there and we'll say things like, well, they ain't have to do us that way. They ain't have to treat us like that. Okay, the thing is, we should have never left off and forsook the covenant with our God. We should have never did what we did. But we gonna find any type of excuse to try and get the blame off of us, to try to soften it up for ourselves to make us feel better about ourselves. This is what we do. And then you have those of us that's sitting here that's always concerned about other nations, always worrying about what's going to happen to them. We sit here, we get questions all the time when people always ask, well, can white people be saved? What about the other nations? Can they be saved? See, not too long ago, we had somebody that popped up in one of the comment sections under one of the teachings that I did asking, can Caucasians be saved? And most of the time, when those types of questions come up, I don't even deal with it. I won't even answer it. And I'm being very upfront. I'm being very straightforward about what I'm saying. Because the thing is, why are we so concerned about everybody else? And we the ones that got the problem with God. We the ones that got the issue. We the ones that need to learn what's required of us to receive salvation. And to correct and rectify the things that we've done wrong. But we so focused on everybody else instead of trying to work out our own salvation. And Jehovah is telling us, we the ones that got a problem. We can see it right here. When we go over here to Amos, he telling us right here. So I don't get why we go around, we worrying about every other thing except what we need to be focused on. When he tell us right here in Amos chapter 3, verse 1 and verse 2, he tells us, he says, hear this word that the Spirit of God has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of bondage, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. For that reason, I will punish you for all your iniquities. So we see what he's saying. So Jehovah is going to punish us for our iniquities, for our acts of wickedness. So why in the world are we so focused on everybody else and we the ones that got the problem? It makes no sense. But this is what we do. We sitting here showing how we went from this state of incorruption to now this decay and this ruin. We were promised life. He gave it to us. But now we subject to death and all these things that come with it that we have to go through and endure in this life, this strict, narrow path that we now have to walk so that we might receive life. But all we do is sit here and worry about everything else instead of getting ourselves right. See, we see that this is a continuous cycle with us. This constant cycle of sin that we constantly getting into. We continuously provoking God to wrath over and over and over again. This is what we do. And we can see this all throughout scriptures. So we're going to go here. We're going to go to Deuteronomy. We're going to hit Deuteronomy chapter 9. And now we're going to hit verse 7 and verse 8. He tells us right here. He says, remember and forget not how thou provokest the Spirit of God thy guide to wrath in the wilderness from the day that thou didst depart out of the land of Egypt until you came into this place. Ye have been rebellious against the Spirit of God. Verse 9. Also in Horeb. Let's see what Horeb means. All right. He tells us right here. Horeb is what? The wilderness. This desolate region. This desert. So we see what it is. We see what we're looking at. This desolate region. This desert. This is where we at. We in this desolate region. Where he said, ye provoke the Spirit of God to wrath. So that the Spirit of God was angry with you to have destroyed you. So we in this desolate region, this wilderness. It's barren. It's a desert. It ain't no knowledge here. He took us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, away from these sinful things that's keeping us enslaved in our minds and all these distractions, so he could feed us with his knowledge. But we don't want that. We out here thirsty for other things to satisfy us. And we can't even see this. Because what he talking about right here, we can't even see. When we go over here, the Exodus chapter 17. In Exodus chapter 17, and we're going to start at verse 1. We're going to take it from verse 1 to verse 7. Exodus chapter 17, starting at verse 1, going to verse 7. He tells us right here, he says, verse 1, and all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Spirit of God, and pitched in Rephidim. And there was no water, so there was no knowledge for the people to drink, to gain understanding. Verse 2, wherefore the people did chide with Moses. So what did they do? Let's see. Let's look at chide. What are we looking at? See, it's tied to upbraid, reproach, rebuke. Let's go right to it. What? It's contentious, strife, brawlers, this division, defy. So we see everything that's tied to chide, being contentious, strife. These are the things that we was getting to. So we was being contentious. We were striving with Moses. So we know Moses is the word of truth. So this is what we were striving with. So he says in verse 2, wherefore the people did chide with Moses. So we striving with the word of truth, and said, give us knowledge that we may drink, that we may gain understanding. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Why are you striving with me? Wherefore do you tempt the Spirit of God? Verse 3, and the people thirsted there for knowledge. And the people murmured against Moses. See what we doing? And said, wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, to kill us, to destroy us, and our children, so and our works, and our cattle, and our doctrines with thirst? This is the question that we asking. This is crazy because we supposed to be killing the flesh, because that's the point. But we sitting here with an issue because we not getting fed with the stuff that we want to hold on to, with the stuff that we desire. See, our hopes in this world, our aspirations and our cravings. These are the things that we were thirsting after. Now we have an issue because our flesh suffering, that thirst, that craving for the stuff that we want to be into. All the stuff that we take pleasure in, all those things that we supposed to have left behind in Egypt. Now we craving those things. Now we have the issue. So we decide we're going to strive with the word of truth. This is why we got a problem, because this is what we do. Verse 4, he said, and Moses cried unto the Spirit of God, saying, what shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me. Verse 5. And the Spirit of God said unto Moses, go on in the presence of the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine power, and go. Verse 6. Remember, I will stand in the presence of thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall knowledge come out of it, that the people may drink, so that they may gain understanding. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. Verse 7. And he called the name of that place Massa. So he called the way of that place Massa. And we can see here what it was. Temptation, trial, to prove. And Meribah. And we're going to see Meribah is telling us what? Strife, chiding, contention. So we see what's going on. So we got Massa, this temptation, these trials and proving, and Meribah, this strife and this contention. Why? Because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Spirit of God, saying, is the Spirit of God among us or not? So this is what we did. We sitting here sowing this discord, striving with Jehovah's truth. So this is what we do. Instead of having faith in Jehovah's provisions, we spoke against him. And we sitting there thinking we speaking against Moses, but won't looking at the fact that he was just a mouthpiece when we were really speaking against God, because we not getting what we want. All those things that we were used to, all that stuff was getting killed out of us, and we had an issue with it. And we can't say we don't do it, because when our flesh suffers hunger, then we like to sit there and allow that flesh to rise back up so we can get a little satisfaction or something. We always love to sit there and reminisce on the things of the past, on the old man and his deeds. We like to go back to the old stuff, those old ways, and bring that stuff back up instead of embracing this new path that's been set before us. Nah, we want to go back to that filth that we was in. So now we want to strive. We want to strive with the word. This is why we have the issue. Not understanding that he was proving us, but we want to sit there and get into contention and strife. So we're gonna see more of this when we go over here to Numbers. We're gonna go to Numbers chapter 11, and now we're gonna hit verse 1 down to verse 6. In Numbers chapter 11. Starting at verse 1, he tells us right here. And it says, and when the people complained, it displeased the Spirit of God. And the Spirit of God heard it, and his anger was kindled. And a fire of the Spirit of God burnt among them and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. Verse 2, and the people cried unto Moses. And when Moses prayed unto the Spirit of God, the fire was quenched. And he called the name of the place Taberah. We're going to see Taberah. He tells us right here, Taberah was what? Burning. This burning anger to consume with fire. So we see that. So he called a way of this place, this burning anger. Why? Because the fire of the Spirit of God burnt among them. And something we got to keep in mind, he already told us in Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 24, he even tells us right here on this, when he let us know right here, he tells us, he says, for the Spirit of God is a consuming fire, even a jealous God. Yeah, because he's going to be a consuming fire to these ways of the flesh, to devour and destroy the ones that want to hold on to the flesh. Because no matter what, we always find a way to provoke him to anger with our works. So he's going to be a consuming fire to that. But this is what we get into. So When we get back over here to Numbers chapter 11, starting at verse 4, well, I'll show the whole thing. Numbers chapter 11, starting at verse 4, he tells us, he says, "And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting, and the children of Israel also wept again and said, Who shall give us flesh to learn?" So this is all we wanted. This is why we was complaining. This is why we was striving and causing all the issues, because we were suffering hunger for our flesh, because we wanted to be fed with flesh. That was our whole issue. This is why we had the problem. So we even see it says a mixed multitude that fell among them. So one thing we got to keep in mind is this: just as it was then, the same as it is today. It's always going to be a mixed multitude, because all Israel ain't Israel. See, some of us will be Hebrews, meaning true Hebrews, and some of us just black. And we already seen what those things mean, because everybody not here for the same thing. Everybody not here for the same reason and purpose. So you're going to have those of us who are actually going to be seeking truth and acknowledging our wickedness and looking to rectify our wrongdoings with our God and correct our ways. Then you're going to have those of us who are always looking and seeking to sow discord and bring in confusion among the brethren and continuously reject and rebel against the instructions of Yahawah, always finding some way to go contrary. See, when he say go right, we go left. He say stop, we go. See, this is always going to happen no matter what. Why? Because there ain't nothing new under the sun. As a matter of fact, I'll even show what he even tell us. Just to show that where he even tell us that these things right here we can't even see. In Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 9, he tells us right here. He says, "The thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun." So he's letting us know. So everything that we see happening here, that we reading of, is the same exact things that we are doing to this very day. So it ain't no different. We the same exact people. We the same people doing the same things. We ain't no different. So we just need to keep that in mind. So now we'll get back over here to Numbers chapter 11. And now we'll hit verse 5. He's telling us, it says, "We remember the fish, which we did eat, which we did learn in Egypt freely. The cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic." Verse 6. "But now our soul, our spirit is dried away. There is nothing at all besides this manna." So besides this knowledge from heaven in the presence of our understanders. So this is what we saying. So these are all these things that we were reminded of. We see what it's saying. We remember the fish. That's why I say that. We remember the fish, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and garlic. See, all these things were brought back to our remembrances because we were still sitting here retaining these things in our mind, our past lives that satisfied us, that we was content with. All these stubborn ways that we have that we didn't want to let go of, and we still wanted to learn of and hold on to. See, this is what's going on. But now understanding that we have this truth, this doctrine from heaven in the presence of us, the only thing that can give us life, that we can get fed with every day to feed and sustain our spiritual lives. But we still sit right there and we want to start reminiscing and missing the things that we used to do in the past. For example, we'll sit right there and say, oh man, I remember how I used to have so much fun getting drunk and getting high in the clubs and partying every weekend, man, I used to be the baddest man in college. I was a high stepper in my Greek fraternity. This is what we do. I'm over there sitting out there. I remember how I used to be running the yard. I remember how I used to be so smooth that I could get with any woman that I wanted to be with. See, these are the things that I was doing. This is the foolishness that I was doing. But we want to sit here, we want to reminisce on those things, calling them, oh, these were my glory days. This is foolishness. Sitting there looking at all our past relationships that we was in. All the fun that we was having, living our life to the fullest. Man, I remember how I used to have so much money. Man, I had the cars with the tinted windows and the sunroofs, the 12-inch, 15-inch speakers blasting in the back, blasting down the highway. Everybody used to ride with me. I was buying this, I was buying that. I was going to this place, I was going to that place. Sitting there saying, oh, I remember how I used to hang out with my family every holiday, how we used to have so much fun, every Christmas dinner, opening presents and gifts, every Thanksgiving dinner, having a big feast, every Sunday church service. Man, I sure miss those songs and the choir and the music and the atmosphere. This is what we do. Sitting there, oh, how we used to enjoy those pork chops, that bacon, and all those all-you-can-eat seafood buffets, and all I have to do is pray over my food and I was good. See, this is the things that we sit there and we are reminisce on all these things of the past, because we sit there and we start lusting over these things again. And now it's in our minds. It's in our thoughts. When we sitting there, we're having conversations about it. We start talking about it. We start bringing all this stuff back up because we these are things that's on our mind. When these things should actually be killed from us, but it's not. This is why we had the problem before, because all this stuff was getting removed from us and we was getting starved of this flesh, but we didn't want to let this stuff go. But sitting there not thinking nothing of the word. This is why we have the problem. So now when we go over here to 2nd Esdras, we're going to see something. When we go to 2nd Esdras, chapter 8, we're going to hit verse 56. We're going to hit verse 56 down to verse 59. Second Esdras, chapter 8, starting at verse 56. And he tell us, for when they had taken liberty, so when we had freedom, they despised the Most High, thought scorn of his law, and forsook his ways. Verse 57. Moreover, they have trodden down his righteous, and said in their heart that there is no God. Yea, and that knowing they must die. Verse 59. For as the things aforesaid shall receive you, so thirst and pain are prepared for them. For it was not his will that men should come to naught, that men should come to nothing. So we can even see right here that it wasn't in his will for us to come to nothing, to be separated from him. But like we stated before, this is something that we put on ourselves. Because he even tell us right here, when we go over here to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 13, he even tell us right here. Matter of fact, we start at verse 12. So Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 12 and verse 13. We see what he telling us. Starting at verse 12, he says, seek not death in the error of your life, and pull not upon yourselves destruction with the works of your hands. Verse 13, for God made not death, neither have he pleasure in the destruction of the living. Now we hit Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2. And we'll go back here and we'll hit verse 24. He tells us, nevertheless, through envy of the devil came death into the world, and they that do hold of his side do find it. Because we choosing to hold to the side of wickedness. See, God doesn't have any, he don't have any pleasure in the death and the destruction of the living. But what we do, we sit there and we decide that we're going to hold on to the other side. So what do we expect? What do we actually expect when we want to hold on to the other side of wickedness instead of holding on to the instructions of God? What do we expect is going to happen to us? That's why he tells us, seek not death in the era of your life, and pull not upon yourselves destruction with the work of your hands, with the work of our powers. This is what he's telling us not to do. But we sit there and we still decide to make these decisions and make these choices. Because he even telling us more when we go to Ezekiel chapter 18 and verse 32. He tells us right here, Ezekiel chapter 18 and verse 32. He tells us, he says, for I have no pleasure in the death of him that dieth, saith the Lord God, saith the Creator, Yahawah. He says, wherefore turn yourselves and live ye. So this is what the Most High is telling us to do. So he has no pleasure in us to be separated from him. He ain't got no pleasure in that. But the thing is on us. It's on the choices that we make. So though he don't have no pleasure in us to be separated from him, to be destroyed, the thing is, though, we separated ourselves. That's what we got to see. That's what we got to realize, that this is what we doing. In Isaiah chapter 59 and verse 2, he tell us right here. Isaiah 59 and verse 2, he tell us, he says, but your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he will not hear. So we have to understand that this is basically like a boundary that we have set up between us and Jehovah because of our iniquities. And that's insane. Because of our own iniquities, we basically blocking ourselves off from Jehovah's protection and his wisdom and his guidance. And it's crazy when you think about it, what we actually doing when we choose to do things our own way. Because we have to understand, he never forsook us or turned away from us, but we sit here and continuously choose to rebel against him. And this is why people have the issue. And we sitting there wondering why we can't never get out of the bad situations that we in. This is why we having the issue. So now we're gonna go to Baruch. Let's go to Baruch chapter 1. We're going to hit Baruch chapter 1, and we're going to hit verse 17. Verse 17 down to verse 22. In Baruch chapter 1, starting at verse 17, and it says, for we have sinned in the presence of the Creator. Verse 18, and disobeyed him, and have not hearkened unto the voice of the Creator our God, to live in the commandments that he gave us openly. Verse 19, since the day that the Lord, the Creator, brought our forefathers out of the land of Egypt unto this present day. So to this very day, we have been disobedient unto the Lord our God, and we have been negligent in not hearing his voice. Verse 20. Wherefore the evils cleaved unto us, and the curse, which the Creator appointed by Moses, his servant, at the time that he brought our fathers out of the land of Egypt, to give us a land that floweth with milk and honey, like as it is to see this day. Nevertheless, we have not hearkened unto the voice of the Lord our God, according unto all the words of the prophets, whom he sent unto us. Verse 22. But every man, so every male or female, followed the imagination of his own wicked heart, to serve strange gods and to do evil in the sight of the Lord our God. So we see that we didn't want to hear his voice. We didn't want to hear God's voice, and we don't want to hear his prophet speaking his words, as we already saw, because we choose to live in our own ways, in our own thoughts, in our own imaginations of our own heart. See, something that we really gonna have to understand is this. This is the thing. We have to keep in mind that Jehovah is the God of Israel, meaning Jehovah's servants, his true servants. He's the God of the Hebrews, those who pass over. So these are the ones that are going to serve him in spirit and in truth, with obedience, dedication, and devotion to his word. See, they not sitting there trying to put conditions or excuses on something. See, he's not the God of the flesh or the God of the children of flesh, those who live and do the works of the flesh, those who always got an excuse for why they can't do something or try to sit there and make the Bible fit their own lifestyle. So the thing is this: if we still decide to sit there and live according to the flesh and do those works and continue to live contrary unto Jehovah, and if we walk away from him, then he's going to forsake those that forsake him. He's not going to chase after flesh. And he tell us this, because this is how serious we got to take this, and this is what we got to understand. Because he tell us this in 2nd Esdras, chapter 1, and verse 25. Verse 25 and verse 26. He tell us right here, 2nd Esdras, chapter 1, starting at verse 25. And he tell us, he's saying, seeing ye have forsaken me, so we departed, we abandoned him. He said, I will forsake you also. We see exactly what he's saying. He says, when ye desire me to be gracious unto you, I shall have no mercy upon you. Verse 26, whensoever ye shall call upon me, I will not hear you, for ye have defiled your hands with blood. So we defiled ourselves with the lifestyle of the flesh, and your feet, your desires are swift to commit manslaughter. So this is what we doing. When we sit there and we think he gonna sit there and chase flesh, when we want to sit there and live according to how we want to live, no, we're not gonna get away with that. So he tell us right here in Proverbs chapter 1, starting at verse 25. He telling us exactly what's going to happen when we sit there and we want to continuously live our own way. He tell us in Proverbs chapter 1, verse 25, he says, but ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. Verse 26, he said, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. Verse 27, when your fear cometh as desolation. He said, when your fear cometh as desolation, let's see what desolation is. Let's look at it. We see that brambles, thorns, but let's go right to desolation. He telling us what? Grief, sadness, loneliness. Look at that. we see what it's talking about. He telling us, he said, when your fear come as desolation, so when your fear come as as this grief, this sadness, this loneliness, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. So this violent spirit, when the stress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they come upon me. So when we going through all that hell, then we going to call upon him. After we done decided that we going to continuously reject him and provoke him to anger and go against his ways, then we going to sit there and think we going to call upon him. But what he say? But I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. So he's making this clear. Verse 29, for that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear, the desire of the Spirit of God. They would none of my counsel. They despised all my reproof. Therefore, they shall eat. They shall learn of the fruit, the works of their own ways, and be filled with their own devices. So back over here in 2 Esdras chapter 1, verse 27, because that's the one we didn't hit. Verse 27, he tells us, he says, ye have not as it were forsaken me, but your own selves, saith the Creator. So this is what we did. This is what we actually doing. Why? Because we sitting there, we filling our desires with our own wicked devices. So when we decide to walk away from truth and we think, oh, well, I'm just going to go, you're going to go back in the world and we're going to do our own thing. So when we sit there and we reject his counsel, his correction, his directions, and his guidance, we sitting there abandoning our own life, our own salvation. See, that ain't no different from committing suicide. That's literally spiritual suicide. When you can sit there and you can hear the pure words of God and actually still walk away from it like it's nothing. But this is what we do. And Jehovah is making this clear that he's going to be against those that are contrary to him. He said, I'm going to laugh at your calamity and I will mock when your fear cometh. He said, I'm going to laugh at your distress and your affliction, at your downfall. This is what he's going to do. When we decide to turn our backs to him, then when our misery comes, he ain't going to answer. You can call on him all day, all you want to, and you're going to be wasting your time. Why? Because no matter what, we choose to sit there and disregard the instructions and the desires of Jehovah, but rather trust in our own selves, in our own wisdom. But we still going to wonder why. We still going to sit there and wonder why our lives are full of turmoil, full of bitterness and sadness. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen to a lot of us when we sit there and we do this. But we're going to keep going. Now, we're going to go back over here. We're going to go back over here to Isaiah chapter 59. Now, we're going to hit verse 3. We're going to take it from verse 3 to verse 8. He tells us in Isaiah chapter 59, starting at verse 3, and it says, for your powers are defiled with blood, this lifestyle, and your fingers with iniquity, acts of sins. Your lips have spoken lies, and your tongue, so your customs, your truth, your ways, have muttered perverseness. Verse 4. None calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity and speak lies. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity. Verse 5. They hatch cockatrice eggs. So these are serpents, and weave the spider's web. He that eateth, so he that learneth of their eggs, so he that learneth of their seed, you learning of their word, their doctrine, dieth. That's what's going to happen. And that which is crushed breaketh out into a viper. He says, their webs shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Verse 7. Their feet, their desires run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent life. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their paths. Verse 8. The way of peace they know not, and there is no judgment. So there ain't no doctrines and teachings in their goings. They have made them crooked paths. Whosoever goeth therein shall not know peace. So he letting us know it ain't no peace in this path. So if we sit there and we reject the truth and continue to trust in lying words and vanities, this path right here is laid with destruction and ruin. So why in the world would we sit there and live in this way when we know what's on this path? When we choose to go this way of these sinful men learning these vain false beliefs, and we sit there and hold on to these things, now we putting ourselves in a position to be enemies of Jehovah. Do we not understand what's going on? Because that's something you absolutely don't want. I can assure you, because at that point, you're putting yourself in 100% lose-lose battle. That's suicide. Because there won't be any peace in this path. Because he already told us. He already told us, whosoever goeth therein shall not know peace. Because it ain't nothing on this path right here but pain and suffering. So why in the world would we put ourselves in this position? It makes no sense. So now we go back over here, the second address. We're going to go to second address, chapter 8. And now we're going to hit verse 59. We're going to hit verse 59 and verse 60. He tells us, second address, chapter 8. Starting at verse 59, he says, for as the things aforesaid shall receive you, so thirst and pain are prepared for them. For it was not his will that men should come to naught. Verse 60, but they which be created have defiled the way of him that made them, and were unthankful unto him which prepared life for them. Verse 61. He tells us right here. He says, and therefore, and for that reason is my judgment now at hand. So this is what's going on. So now we'll go over here to Jeremiah. We're going to hit Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 10. He tells us. He says in Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 10, he says, to whom shall I speak and give warning that they may hear? Remember, their ear is uncircumcised. So it's defiled. It's of the world. And they cannot hearken. Behold, remember, the word of the Spirit of God is unto them a reproach. They have no delight in it. So we ain't got no pleasure in it. This is what he's telling us. So we hit Jeremiah over here. We hit chapter 49. Jeremiah chapter 49. And then we're going to hit verse 12. and verse 13. Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse 12, he tells us, he says, for thus saith the Spirit of God, remember, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup. So he tells us whose judgment was not to drink of the cup. So let's see what this cup is. Yeah, we just want cup. He tell us right here. We see the contents, this abundance. But what we want, this blessing, this communion, what we want is right here. This divine judgment. This is what we've been talking about. That cup, that divine judgment. He telling us. He said, for thus said the Spirit of God, remember, they whose judgment was not to drink of this cup, this divine judgment, have assuredly drunken. Oh, yeah, we don't drunk of it. He says, and art thou in your perfection and beauty, he that shall altogether go unpunished? This is what we was talking about earlier. Do we really think we gonna go unpunished for these things? He's asking us. He about to tell us, thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. So we gonna drink of it. We gonna go through this. He telling us this is what we don't want. Verse 13, he says, for I have sworn by myself, said the Spirit of God, that Bozrah shall become a desolation, a reproach, a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetual waste. So we got to see this Bozrah, so we understand what you're talking about when we looking at Bozrah. He telling us right here, Bozrah is what? Edom, this rebellious sheepfold. We see all these things, this fortress, this enclosure, but we see it right here. Rebellious ones, stubborn ones. So this is who he talking to. And guess what? That's us. This is us. We the rebellious ones. These rebellious ones that's going to become a desolation and a reapproach. That's who he talking to. So it ain't talking about Esau. People might think, oh, it said Edom's talking about Esau. No, this not talking about Esau. This is talking about those of us who are in rebellion, who are in transgression and disobedience against Jehovah, the workers of disobedience. He's making this clear that these ones will drink of that cup, that suffering, that affliction, that judgment that comes from this resistance against the ways of Jehovah. This is what he's telling us. This is the issue that we having, because we want to be in constant rebellion and disobedience against Jehovah. He already said that those of us that want to do this is going to become a desolation and a reapproach, a waste and a curse, a perpetual waste that's everlasting. So we need to keep this in mind. We need to understand what's going on. So now let's go to Ezekiel. We're going to go to Ezekiel chapter 21. And we'll hit verse 31 and verse 32. Ezekiel chapter 21, verse 31 and verse 32. He tells us in verse 31, he says, and I will pour out my indignation upon thee, and I will blow against thee in the fire of my wrath, and deliver thee into the hand of brutish men, and skillful to destroy. So he said he gonna deliver us into the hand of these brutish men. So we got to see that. He tells us right here, brutish, ignorant, carnal, foolish, unreasonable, ignorant. This is what he's talking about. Brutish. So he's saying he gonna deliver thee into the hand of these ignorant, carnal, unreasonable men, and skillful. So they cunning, they crafty to destroy. This is what's happening. And you can even look at us right now. We sat there and we wanted to magnify these fleshly kings over us, and that's what we got. All these men in these positions of power in this world, and we sitting right there following behind them, following behind these false teachers. These false teachers in these buildings and all these camp doctrine leaders, these liars and these smooth talkers, these brutish men, these great orators, these guys that know how to give these motivational sounding speeches out here. And it just sounds good to the people, being skillful, being cunning with their words and how they do things. And they're just lying to get gain and have you to be subject unto them. We caught up in all this stuff. And a lot of people don't even see it. We don't even see what's going on. We don't even realize why we in that position. That this is due to our disobedience. The Spirit of God told us he's going to give us into the powers of these men. And we sitting here thinking it's normal and thinking it's cool, like it's okay, and it's not. This is an issue. These false doctrines and these teachings of these men that many of our people are sitting under are destroying us. And we just sitting there in it like ain't nothing going on. This isn't due to our disobedience against Jehovah. This is what's happening. Verse 32, he tells us, he says, thou shalt be for fuel to the fire. Thy blood, thy lifestyle shall be in the midst of the land, and thou shalt be no more remembered. For I, the Spirit of God, have spoken it. And what he just said right there, thou shalt be no more remembered. For I have the Spirit of God spoken it. And that's just running me somewhere over here. What he tell us right here in 2nd Ezra chapter 2. He tells us right here in 2nd Ezra chapter 2 and verse 7. He tells us, he says, let them be scattered abroad among the heathen. Let their ways be put out of the earth, for they have despised my covenant. So our ways has been put out. It ain't going to be no more in remembrance. That's why we in the position we in right now. And we don't know who we are. This is why we have the problem. But it still goes back to what? It still goes back to disobedience and rebellion against Jehovah. This is what this is all coming back to. Because of what we did. See, that's why we keep saying it's always going to come back to falling back on us based on what we did. This is why we have the issue. So now, let's go to Leviticus. We're going to hit Leviticus chapter 26. And in Leviticus chapter 26, we're going to hit verse 18. We're going to hit verse 18, and we're going to take it down to verse 24. Leviticus chapter 26, verse 18, down to verse 24. And it says, and if so providing ye will not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. Verse 19, and I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heaven as iron, and your earth as brass, and your strength shall be spent in vain, for your land So your people shall not yield her increase, neither the trees of the land yield their fruits, their works. Verse 21. And providing you walk, you live contrary unto me, and will not hearken unto me, I will bring 7 times more plagues upon you for according to your sins. So all this distress, this suffering, and these afflictions. Verse 22, he said, I will also send wild beasts among you. So these unruly, evil men, which shall rob you of your children. So they're going to rob you of your works and destroy your cattle and make you few in number. And your highways, so the ways of righteousness, shall be desolate. It's going to be ruined. Verse 23, and if ye will not be reformed by me, by these things, and will live contrary unto me, then will I also live contrary unto you, and will punish you yet 7 times for your sins. So we see exactly what's happening, exactly what's going on. I mean, all this is straightforward and clear as day, where Jehovah is telling us exactly what's going to happen to us when we decide to make the choices that we make. So now we're going to go over here to Lamentations chapter 2. Lamentations chapter 2 and verse 17. He tells us in Lamentations chapter 2 verse 17, it says, the Spirit of God have done that which he have devised. He hath fulfilled his word that he had commanded in the days of old. We seen it. He have thrown down and have not pitied. He have caused thine enemy to rejoice over thee. He have set up the horns of the lineage of thy adversaries. Let's go to Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 42. And now we're going to hit verse 23. Well, we're going to hit verse 23 down to verse 25. Isaiah chapter 42, starting at verse 23. And it says, who among you will give ear to this? So who's going to hearken unto this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Verse 24. Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Spirit of God? He against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. Verse 25. Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and it have set him on fire round about, yet he knew not. And it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. So we see that he's done this. The Spirit of God is making it very clear to us because we all live in these same positions today, going through these afflictions and these sufferings and these things we have to go through. But the problem is when we not recognizing why we in the position that we in. That's why I brought up earlier how we like to always place blame towards others. And the whole point of us going through these afflictions is to chasten us, because we the ones that sin against God. But a lot of us are going to be destroyed for these things because we refuse to hearken unto Jehovah. But we sit there and we want somebody to feel sorry for us when we going through hell, but we constantly rejecting truth. But now we want somebody to feel sorry for us. Like we want somebody to feel bad. We want people to feel bad for us, but we the ones that's constantly going contrary, but we want pity. And he even tell us that when in Jeremiah, we're going to hit Jeremiah right here. He even tell us in Jeremiah chapter 15 and verse 5. We're going to hit Jeremiah chapter 15 and verse 5. He tells us right here. He says, He says, for who shall have pity on thee, O Jerusalem? Who's going to have pity on you? Or who shall bemoan thee? Or who shall go aside to ask how thou doest? He's asking us, who's going to have pity on us? This is why we have the issue. And what makes it worse is a lot of us, we go around here and think we can save people, especially our family members and our friends and people that we encounter and we speak with on the job. Because no matter how much you can speak truth with somebody, if they sit there and they decide to lean to their own understanding and how they want to see it and hold to how they want to hold to things, then we sitting there. So why are we sitting there trying to save them? You can't do that. All we can do is share the truth and give warning and give instruction. If somebody don't want to hear it and they want to hearken to their own way, we kick the dust off our feet and we keep it moving. But we can't be sitting there thinking that, I'm just gonna see if I can keep getting them. I'm gonna see if I can make them see that. We can't make nobody see anything. This is what we got to understand. But then you have those same ones that's sitting there that's constantly rejecting truth, that's constantly rejecting the word of God, that want to live their own way. But then we got these Christian habits in our mind. They'll sit there and say, oh, well, just pray for me. Just pray for me. Pray for what? Why are you going to pray for somebody who willingly decides to walk contrary to Yahawah after receiving the truth? Why are you going to pray for the dead who chooses to walk that way, being a scorner, a mocker of the truth? So why would we do that? Because he even tell us right here. We stand in Jeremiah. When we hit Jeremiah chapter 14, he tell us in Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 10 and verse 11. He tells us right here, Jeremiah chapter 14, starting at verse 10. He says, thus saith the Spirit of God unto this people, thus have they loved to wander. So we love to go astray and turn aside. They have not refrained their desires. For that reason, the Spirit of God do not accept them. He's not going to accept them. So what we think we doing? He said, he will now remember their iniquity, their acts of sins, and visit their sins. Verse 11, here you go. Then said the Spirit of God unto me, pray not for this people, for their good. Why? Because when we sitting there choosing to live that way, we willingly deciding to do what we going to do. We're not trying to change. A lot of people just want somebody to pacify their sins and make us feel good about what we're doing. We just want to sit there and have people. We just want somebody to listen to us and listen to what we got going on. But then when you can sit there and share truth and share instruction and give wisdom from God, we don't want to take hold to it. We just want to hear something that's going to make us feel good about ourselves for a little bit. Oh, just give me a good word. Just give me a good word. No. But then we want to sit there and continually be in transgression against Yahawah, knowing we not really trying to change. It makes no sense. But this is what we do. This just came to mind. And I'm gonna go over here because it just came to mind. So I'm gonna go to it. Well, he tell us right here in Jeremiah chapter 13, verse 23. He tell us in Jeremiah chapter 13 and verse 23. He says, "Can the Ethiopian change his skin, or the leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good that are accustomed to do evil. But we don't want to change. We don't want to do good. We want to stay the exact same way that we are. This is why we have the issue. Can the Ethiopian change his skin, or the leopard his spots? We want to stay just like that, because we are accustomed to doing evil. But we sit there, and when we are accustomed to doing evil, we sit there and want to stay in that way and reject the knowledge of truth. But then we got the nerve to sit there and say, "Oh, just pray for me. Just pray for me." we something else. We are something else, that we got the nerve to sit there and do these types of things. But you see what the Spirit of God is saying. And we'll reiterate Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 10 and 11. He says, "Thus have they loved to wander. They have not refrained their desires. Therefore, the Spirit of God do not accept them. He will now remember their acts of sins." Okay. "And visit their sins. Then said the Spirit of God to me, pray not for this people for their good." So now we'll go back over here to Jeremiah chapter 15. And now we'll hit verse 6. He tells us in verse 6, he's saying, "Thou hast forsaken me, saith the Spirit of God." Thou art going backward. So in your perfection and beauty, we went backward. "Therefore will I stretch out my power against thee and destroy thee." He says, "I am weary with repenting." We see what he's saying. So he letting us know. He said, "I am weary with repenting, with remembering." So he's tired of it. So we got to really realize what it is that we doing, because we got to keep something in mind on what he already said before from the beginning, what he told us in Genesis chapter 6, starting at verse. So Genesis chapter 6, we're going to hit verse 3 down to verse 5. He tells us right here, he said, well, actually verse 3 down to verse 6, I meant. Sorry about that. Genesis chapter 6, verse 3 down to verse 6. And it says, "And the Spirit of God said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years." So he's not gonna strive with us. He's not gonna always strive with us. Verse 4, he says, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God," so the servants of God, "came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown." Verse 5, "And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." Verse 6, "And it repented," so it reminded the Spirit of God that he had made man on the earth, and it angered him, so it grieved him at his heart. So this is why he's saying this, because he's not going to keep striving with us. This is what we think. But what our issue is, we think the Most High is just supposed to answer us when we need help. But we want to sit there and think that we can strive with him. So we're going to go over here, and this one just came to me as well. So we're going to go over here to Isaiah chapter 45 because we need to see this. In Isaiah chapter 45, he tell us right here in verse 9. Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 9. He tell us, he says, woe unto him that striveth with his maker. Let the potsherd strive with the potsherds of the earth. So shall the clay say unto him that fashioned it, what makest thou? Or thy work? He have no hands, he have no powers. So who do we think we are? We flesh. So we sitting there, but we trying to strive with the Spirit of God, the one who has all power and sovereignty over all things. This makes no sense. He telling us right here in verse 7. He says, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Spirit of God, do all these things. So what in the world are we talking about? What are we doing? When we sitting there and we striving and we being contentious and we defiant and rejecting and rebellion against the Spirit of God as if we are something. As if we on some type of level to him. We ain't nothing but flesh. So it makes no sense when we sit here and do this. When we sit here and we continuously be disobedient unto him, but then think when in our little brains, we think that he's supposed to answer us when we need help. When we want to continue, we're going to continue to do wrong. But then when things get real tough for us, now we think he's just supposed to answer us, but we going to still do wickedly. We think we can go back and forth and continually sin and do what we want and think that the Most High is supposed to keep dealing with our foolishness. And he's been dealing with us as we seen. We sat there and we continuously provoked him to anger. He tell us this when we go over here to Psalms. We hit Psalms chapter 95 and verse 10. He tell us right here, Psalms chapter 95, verse 10 and verse 11. He says, 40 years long was I grieved with this generation. I was angered with this generation and said, it is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. Verse 11, he says, unto whom I swear in my wrath, that they should not enter into my rest. This is what he's telling us. Speaking of our forefathers, but the issue is we putting our own selves in the same position because we're not learning anything. We want to steady do our own thing, but we can't even see exactly why he telling us this. Because when we get over here to Exodus chapter 32, he even tell us this in verse 9. When we go to verse 9, we're going to hit verse 9 down to 14. He tell us right here. Exodus chapter 32. We're going to hit verse 9. Down to 14. He tell us, and the Spirit of God said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and remember, it is a stiff-necked people. Verse 10, now for that reason, let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. Verse 11, and Moses besought the Spirit of God his guide, and said, Spirit of God, why doeth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, which thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt, out of bondage with great power, and with a mighty hand? Verse 12, wherefore should the Egyptians speak and say, for mischief did he bring them out, to slay them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from that fierce wrath, and remember of this evil against thy people. Verse 13, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants, whom thou to whom thou swearest by thy own self, and saidst unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of will I give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. Verse 14. And the Spirit of God remembered of the evil which he thought to do unto his people. See, so we see that Jehovah was going to bring his wrath upon us right here. But he remembered of the evil that he thought to do, and he had mercy upon us. See, that's what we want. That's what we want to happen. But the thing is, but we sit there and think we can keep dibbling and dabbling in the world and these fleshly things and do whatever we want to do and believe that Jehovah is just going to keep coming behind us and he's going to keep doing this stuff. We already seen if we forsake him, we going to have problems. But a lot of us have this mindset where we still believe that as long as we just ask for forgiveness of our sins, we good. Oh, Lord, all I gotta do is I can go out here. It was just a small sin. It was just a little one. As long as I ask for forgiveness, I should be okay. Okay. Even after knowing what the truth is, we still think we can sit there and commit acts of wickedness contrary to Jehovah and think it's gonna be okay. After knowing what the truth is. Oh, it won't that bad. I can get away with it. This won't even teaching, but we just pull it because for whatever reason we think this don't apply. He tell us Hebrews 10:26. He says, "For if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more established covenants," because that's a sacrifice for sins. So it ain't no more established covenants for sins when we sin willfully, when we do these wicked things willfully, when we know what we doing. But this is what we got. Verse 27. But a certain fearful looking for of judgment. That's what we going to get. And fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries, the enemies. When we sit there and we sin willfully and we willfully go against God, then we become adversaries. We become enemies of God. So that's what we going to get when we sit here and do stuff like this. But to us, we said, well, it won't that bad. Okay, play around and find out. When we sit there and still marginalize in our own minds that if the works that we're doing according to the flesh seems small to us it seems small that we think we okay. This is why we have the problem. Because he making something real, he gonna make something real clear to us. Right here. Over here in Acts. We're going to hit Acts chapter 17. Let's see. Acts chapter 17 and verse 30. He tells us right here, Acts chapter 17, verse 30, he says, "And the times of this ignorance, God winked at." So he winked at it. That's a full thought. But, however, now commandeth all men everywhere to repent, to remember. So you see what he's saying. So he said God winked at it, this ignorance. So he winked at it before. See, that's the thing. But we not getting away with this stuff. We never did. But the thing is, we think he's going to look past this stuff that we're doing. When he already done told us in Deuteronomy chapter 24, like, we ain't getting away. We ain't getting away with anything. He told us in Deuteronomy chapter 24 and verse 16, he says, what? "The fathers shall not be put to death for the children, neither shall the children be put to death for the fathers. Every male or female shall be put to death for his own sin." So every male or female would die for their own sin. So we can't put nobody else on the altar trying to sacrifice them for our sins. We can't put nobody else there but our own flesh. So we're going to have to pay for our own wicked deeds. See, then somebody might sit there and say, well, what am I doing? What is it I'm doing? Okay, well, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Because that's the issue that we having. Because for whatever reason, we act like we don't do it, nothing wrong. When it comes to us, we just act like we just can't see what our issues are. Or we think we don't deserve our punishment. And guess what? We deserve every single bit of everything that's happened to us. But we have an issue with that. We don't like to hear stuff like that. But he tells us right here in Jeremiah, when we go over here to Jeremiah chapter 16, and we hit verse 10, we're going to hit verse 10 down to verse 13. He tells right here, Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 10 down to verse 13. He says in verse 10, he says, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt show this people all these words, and they shall say unto thee, wherefore? Have the Spirit of God pronounced all this great evil against us? Wherefore? Have the Spirit of God pronounced all this great evil against us? Or what is our iniquity? You see? Or what is our sin that we have committed against the Spirit of God our God? You see how we questioning this? We questioning this as if we don't know what we've done wrong? Verse 11. Then shalt thou say unto them, because your fathers have forsaken me, saith the Spirit of God, and have lived after other gods, so other idols, and have served them, and have worshipped them, and have forsaken me, and have not kept my law. Verse 12. And ye have done worse than your fathers. For behold, remember, you live every one after the imagination of his evil heart, that they may not hearken unto me. Verse 13. Therefore will I cast you out of this land into a land that ye know not, neither ye nor your fathers, and there shall you serve other gods day and night, where I will not show you favor. So this is what we've done in a nutshell. This is what he's telling us. Forsaking the path of righteousness and the laws of our God, and we've sat in there taking a hold of these things that are abominable unto him. All these things that are fleshly and temporal in this world that we've cleaved unto instead of being obedient and in submission to Jehovah's will. This is what we're doing, and we still doing it. Each and every single one of us can look in the mirror and we going to see this flesh that we in, meaning we got all these things in this dross within ourselves that we need to correct and remove from us. That's why he's saying this right here. In this verse 30 right here on the right side of the screen. But now commandeth all men everywhere to repent. So all of us got to repent. We got to come to the remembrance of the things that we've been doing that's contrary to Jehovah and acknowledge those things and forsake them. Because all of us know exactly what we're doing. So we can't say within ourselves that we ain't doing nothing because all of us have sinned. Because if you say you ain't got no sin, you say you ain't sinned, then you a straight up liar. Because he even tell us right here. When we go over here to the 1 John chapter 1, because some people going to still sit there and say that. 1 John chapter 1 verse 10. He tell us, he says, if we say that we have not sinned, we make him a liar, and his word is not in us. But some people are going to sit there and say, well, they ain't sinned. Guess what? Those of us that want to sit there and say that fall right into the same category of the disobedient, the rebellious against Jehovah. That's who the wrath of God is coming. That's why he's telling us this. He tells us in Romans chapter 3 and verse 23. We see right here. Romans chapter 3 verse 23. He says, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So all of us have sinned. All of us had issues that we have to work through. These are the issues that we having. So these works that we doing against Jehovah. And he's not going to look past any of these things. We're not going to get pacified for those sins. Because now he tell us when we go over here to Amos chapter 7. And we're going to hit verse 7 and verse 8. He tells us right here exactly what's going to happen, what's happening. Amos chapter 7, starting at verse 7, he says, "Thus he showed me, and behold, remember, the Creator stood upon a wall made by a plumb line, with a plumb line in his power." Verse 8, "And the Spirit of God said unto me, Amos, what seest thou? And I said, a plumb line. Then said the Spirit of God, I will set a plumb line." So this separation in the midst of my people, Israel. "I will not again pass by them anymore." So we see what he's saying. So he's declaring to us what he's going to do. He's going to put this plumb line in the midst of Israel. Like we stated before, everybody not Israel, because it's a mixed multitude. So there has to be a separation. And he's saying he's not going to pass by us anymore. This is what he's going to do. So this even mirrors what we see that's stated even here in Matthew, because now we have a choice to make. We have the choice before us in the presence of us that we have to make. And it's going to be on us on what we're going to do. Because we even see right here in Matthew chapter 3, we're going to hit verse 1 and verse 2. So Matthew chapter 3, starting at verse 1, he tells us, he says, "In those days came John the Baptist." And we can even see what this means for any newcomers that might be here. That's why I want to make sure that I show these things here, so we can even see John. You can see why we even going over here. Could even tell us what John means. What? Jehovah has been gracious. Because Yahawah has been gracious. That's what he's telling us. And we see Baptists. Because this is what we're talking about. Condemner of the private and public, to cleanse continually, condemn continually. So this Baptist is this condemner. So we see in those days came John the Baptist, because Jehovah has been gracious. This condemner. This is who came. Preaching, so he was proclaiming and declaring in the wilderness of Judea, in the land of the Jews, saying, "Repent, remember ye, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." So this is what we need to understand. So this is what he's telling us. Because we have to look at it, we have to look at these ways, the meaning of these names in these ways. We have to look at this spiritually. Because Jehovah, as we've seen over here, Jehovah is not going to pass by us anymore. He's not going to pass by us anymore. And he's been gracious unto us since the beginning. Even though we have constantly rebelled against him, but he's given us a choice. But he's not going to pass by us anymore. We're either going to do right or we're going to do wrong. Because the kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's being made known to us because our very lives are on the line. So that's why we on this subject. The wrath of God cometh upon the workers of disobedience, because it's coming. And what we need to do is just make sure that we're not a part of it, and come to remembrance of our sins and the evil deeds that we've done against God. And be able to condemn this flesh. We got to be cleansed continually of these ways of the flesh. Because we can't pass by these things anymore. These things have to be mortified from us. But the fact of the matter is, no matter what, a lot of us to this day will still continue to reject truth. No matter what's said, no matter what's spoken, a lot of us are going to stay doing the same things that we've always done. The lifestyles that we used to and what we comfortable in doing, and refuse to condemn this flesh. That's just going to happen. And those of us who chooses the wrong side of the plumb line will receive our just recompense. Because we have to remember, all of us are going to receive something in the end. So that's what we got to keep in mind. So we're going to pull this last one right here. Let me see. In Romans chapter 6 and verse 23. It's already highlighted partially, but we're going to highlight the whole thing. Romans chapter 6 and verse 23. He tells us right here, he says, for the wages of sin is death. That's a full thought. But, however, the gift of God is eternal life through salvation of Yahawah, of our Creator. So, we see what's going on. So, as we seen and as we said, this choice is before us. Life and death, good and evil. These things are here in the presence of us. Matter of fact, since I brought that up, that life and death, good and evil, I might as well go ahead and pull that verse real quick so we can see that. Over here in Sirach chapter 37 and verse 18, he tells us right here, he says, four manner of things appear, good and evil, life and death. But the tongue, so the customs, the ways, the traditions, ruleth over them continually. So it's based on what we're going to hold to. What the lifestyle that we're going to be living. We either going to do good and receive life, or we're going to do evil and receive death. That's on us. So we seen these choices that's before us, and this plumb line that's been set. So this right here, this was the first part of this teaching. But we're gonna actually come back to this teaching and revisit this teaching and go deeper into this. But we just pretty much just got a general understanding on why the wrath of God is coming upon those of us who work rebellion against the Spirit of God. So we see now why this rebellion will always breed sin, and the consequences of those actions will always lead to divine judgment from God upon workers of iniquity. So we have to understand that Yahawah didn't forsake us. We forsook ourselves when we decided to walk away from our God and live our own way. And it's always going to be a recompense for that. So that's what we got to keep in mind. So as we continue, when we come back together for the part 2, we going to go into a deeper dive on this so we can make sure that we are looking within ourselves so we can really understand more on what these children of disobedience look like and what these things are. And if there are any things within ourselves that align with those ways, then if we see that, then we need to absolutely make sure that we unalign ourselves with those ways and we don't fall into this perdition and this destruction that's set for those that work wickedness. That's what we need to make sure that we are able to do. So with that, this was part 1 of this teaching. I appreciate everyone for coming out. Like I said, this was part 1 of this teaching. So next week, we'll come right back and we'll jump right into the next part next week. So with that, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in with me. This was Deacon Ernest James coming out of Durham, North Carolina, King James Bible University. And I would like to say, Shalom.